You feel it, don't you? That heavy, suffocating silence. The sensation that the world has moved on while you are standing still, trapped in a chapter that won't end. You've done the work. You've prayed, you've planned, and you've music waited. Yet, instead of the breakthrough you were promised, you've been met with a series of closed doors, broken connections, and a strange, unsettling confusion. You feel lost. But according to Carl Jung, being lost is the most dangerous and most necessary lie your ego has ever told you. Jung believed that there is no such thing as a random disaster. What you perceive as falling music apart is actually the calcination phase of your soul. The alchemical fire that must burn away your false masks so the gold beneath can music breathe. You aren't hitting a wall. You are hitting a boundary that was built to protect an old version of you. Music. Your life isn't failing. It is being cleared like a plot of land before a palace. Music is built. We often mistake the silence of the universe for its absence. Music. We think that, because we cannot see the progress, no progress is being made. But beneath the surface of your conscious awareness, the great work is unfolding. Everything you've experienced, music, the delays that made no sense, the people who walked away, the dreams that crumbled in your hands are not obstacles. They are coordinates. They are the invisible threads of synchronicity woven by a self that knows exactly where you need to be, even when your mind is screaming that you are going the wrong way. Today, we are going to stop looking at the back of the tapestry, where the threads are messy and music tangled, and start looking at the master design from the front. We live in a world that is terrified of empty space. Music. From the moment we wake up, we are told to fill the silence with noise, the stillness with hustle, and the confusion with certainty. We treat a void in our lives. Whether it's a career that has stalled, a relationship that has vanished, or a sudden loss of interest in things we used to love, as a catastrophic failure. Music. We call it depression. We call it falling behind. But Carl Jung looked at the void differently. To Jung, the void was not a grave. It was a crucible. In the ancient art of alchemy, music, which Jung spent the latter half of his life decoding as a map of the human psyche, the first and most painful stage of transformation is called calcination. It is the process of heating a substance in a sealed vessel until it is reduced to ash. In your music life, calcination feels like your world is on fire. It is the moment where your old coping mechanisms stop working, where your mask or persona begins to crack, and where you are forced to sit in the ruins of who you thought you were. If you are watching this and feeling that your life is empty, you must understand that the alchemist cannot create gold in a vessel that is already full of lead. Your life is being emptied because the self, that higher orchestrating center of your psyche, has decided that the version of you that existed yesterday is no longer large enough to hold music, what is coming tomorrow. Many of you feel out of sync with a world that seems to be moving forward without you. You feel a strange backwards pull. Jung would tell you that this is the psyche's way of withdrawing its energy from the external world to focus on an internal alignment. Think of a bow and arrow. To hit a target that is far, music in the distance, the arrow must first be pulled backwards away from the goal into the tension of the string. Music. The deeper the pull, the further the flight. Your void, this period of silence and stagnation, music, is that backwards pull. You are currently in the tension. This nothingness you are experiencing is actually a form of soul capital. Music. In the first half of life, we are often dedicated to building the container, the career, the family, the social standing. Music. But the second half of life is dedicated to what is inside the container. If your container has shattered, it's because the soul is on strike. It is refusing to live in a fake reality any longer. The void is the soul's way of saying that it will no longer provide energy for a life that isn't yours. When life clears what no longer belongs, music feels like an eviction. But in the Jungian sense, it is a clearing of the land before the palace is built. You cannot build a sovereign life on top of old debris. There is a specific kind of music peace that starts to emerge when you stop fighting the void. This is because struggle is often just the ego trying to repair a mask that was never meant to be permanent. The void is where you meet your shadow, on a music. It is where you face the parts of yourself you've hidden behind your persona, your anger, your unfulfilled dreams, your repressed power. In the darkness of the void, these broken pieces begin to reintegrate. You realize that your scars aren't just memories of pain. They are the structural beams of your new character. You aren't being punished with silence, you are being reinforced in music. You are being made heavy so that when your best chapter begins, you aren't blown away by the first wind of criticism or the first hint of success. You will be rooted. Music. You will be earthed. The miracle you are waiting for is not an event that happens to you. It is a frequency that you become capable of holding. If you look at the most magnificent trees, they grow the slowest. Their roots go deep into the dark, cold earth, the void, long before their branches ever touch the light. They spend years in stagnation beneath the surface, building the strength to support a massive canopy. Your wilderness years have not been a waste of time. They have been an investment in your sovereignty. You are moving from being an actor in someone else's play to being the creator of your own reality. Music. So if you are sitting in the silence today, do not panic. Do not try to fix it by rushing back into the noise. Sit with the nothingness. Ask it what is being built in the dark. Because the music truth is the most productive moment of your life is not when you are running. It is right now in the silence where the old you is dying and the sovereign self is finally taking the wheel. Consider the biological process of the caterpillar. Music. Before it becomes a butterfly, it doesn't just grow wings. It dissolves completely into a literal soup within the cocoon. If you were to look inside that cocoon midway through the process, music, you wouldn't see a half butterfly. You would see a mess. You would see what looks like total disintegration. To the caterpillar, music, this is the end of the world. But to the nature of the creature, it is the only way to achieve flight. You are in that soup phase. The structures of your old life have dissolved, and the new ones haven't hardened yet. This is why you feel vulnerable. This is why you feel like you have no skin. But this dissolution is the requirement for the reconfiguration. The universe isn't interested in making you a better version of your old self. It is interested in an entirely different species of existence. This is why the traditional advice of just work harder or think positive feels so hollow to you right now. Those are ego-level solutions for a soul-level transformation. When you are in the void, the ego is no longer the captain of the ship. The objective psyche has taken over. Jung described this as music, a force that operates independently of our conscious will. It is the part of you that knows the end of the story while you are still struggling through the middle. It is the architect that sees the finished cathedral while you are still staring at a pile of rocks. Your job right now is not to build. It is to allow yourself to be built. It is to stop interfering with the music fire. Every time you try to rush out of this phase, you blow out the flame that is trying to temper your spirit. You postpone the very breakthrough you are crying out for. Believe that the silence is not empty, it is full of information. Every no you have received lately, music, every door that slammed in your face, was the universe protecting you from a path that was too small for you. If you had succeeded at those things, you would have stayed a caterpillar forever. You would have been comfortable, but you would never have known the sky. Music. The void is the only place large enough for a truly great destiny to take shape. It is the womb of the future. When you finally stop asking, why is this happening to me, and start asking, what is this preparing me for? The atmosphere of your life changes instantly. Music. You stop being a victim of chaos and start being a student of alchemy. You begin to see that the darkness was never meant to swallow you. It was meant to hide you while you were being remade. Music. In this sacred space, you are learning a secret that most people will never know. That the end of your world is simply the beginning of your universe. Once you, music, stop fighting the silence of the void, a strange phenomenon begins to occur. You start to notice that the world around you is no longer a collection of random, disconnected events. Instead, music. It begins to behave like a mirror. You think of a person you haven't spoken to in years. Music, and 5 minutes later, their name appears on your phone. You find a book in a coffee shop that answers the exact question you were whispering to yourself that morning. You encounter a specific animal, a repeating number, or a fragment of a conversation that feels like it was written specifically for you. Music. To the rational mind, these are mere coincidences. But to Carl Jung, these were the language of the soul. Music. He called this synchronicity. Jung defined synchronicity as a meaningful coincidence between an inner state and an external event. It is the moment where the boundary between the mind and matter dissolves, revealing that they are two sides of the same coin. Music. When you are in the midst of a life-shaping transformation, the universe stops talking to you through logic and starts talking to you through symbols. This is the objective psyche reaching out to let you know that you are not alone in the dark. It is the universe's way of providing a nod of approval that you are finally on the right track, even if that track currently looks like a dead end. Most people miss these signs because they are too busy looking for a solution. They want a roadmap, a 5-year plan, or a bank statement that proves they are safe. But the soul does not speak in spreadsheets. It speaks in the language of the dream world, brought into the waking day. If you are experiencing a surge of these coincidences right now, it is a sign that your inner alignment is finally matching the frequency of your outer destiny. Music. The rearranging of the furniture in your life is not a sign of chaos. It is music, a sign of preparation. The events of your life are being orchestrated by a part of you that is far older and wiser than your conscious ego. Jung often shared the story of a patient who was too stuck in her own logic to experience a breakthrough, while she was describing a dream about a golden scarab. A real golden scarab beetle began tapping against the window of the room. Jung opened the window, music caught the beetle, and handed it to her, saying, "Here is your scarab." This impossible coincidence shattered her rational defenses, music, and allowed her transformation to begin. In the same way, the impossible events in your life are designed to shatter your old way of thinking. They are meant to prove to you that there is a force at work that is much larger than your hustle or your worry. Mas, when you see a sign, do not try to analyze it to death with your intellect. Instead, feel the resonance of it in your body. Synchronicity is not meant to tell you what to do next. It is meant to remind you who you are. It is a reminder that you are a participant in a living, breathing cosmos that is aware of your journey. As you move through this phase where everything feels like it's falling apart, pay attention to the small, random occurrences. These are the breadcrumbs leading you out of the woods. They are the evidence that while you felt you were standing still, the world was actually shifting beneath your feet to meet your new vibration. This is why Jung insisted that we must live symbolically. When you treat your life as a series of meaningful symbols rather than random accidents, music, you move from being a victim of fate to being a collaborator with destiny. The coincidences will accelerate the more you acknowledge them. You are beginning to learn the grammar of a new language. A language that doesn't use words, but uses the very fabric of reality itself to guide you home. You are not just a person trying to make things work out. You are a focal point of the universe, and the universe is currently responding to the shift you are making deep within your soul. In our culture, speed is equated with success. We are taught that if you haven't reached your peak by 30, or if your projects take years to bear fruit, you have somehow failed the test of life. Music. We are obsessed with the overnight success and the prodigy, worshipping those who seem to sprint music toward their goals without effort. But in the realm of the psyche, time does not move in a straight line. It moves in a spiral. Carl Jung understood that the most significant transformations often require a period of incubation that looks from the outside like absolute stagnation. He knew that the soul is not interested in your deadline. It is interested in your depth. This is what we must come to understand as the architecture of delay. Think of the difference between a weed and an oak tree. A weed grows in days, reaching its full height almost instantly, but it has no roots and perishes at the first frost. An oak tree, however, spends its first years focusing almost entirely on what is hidden. It builds a root system that is often larger than the tree itself. It is delayed by music, the standards of the field, but that delay is exactly what allows it to stand for centuries. If you feel like your life has been on hold while everyone else is racing ahead, it is because you are not being built for a season. You are being built for an era. You are currently building the psychological root system that will music support the massive weight of your future purpose. You are being made heavy, rooted, and unshakable. Jung believed that the first half of life is devoted to music, forming a healthy ego, while the second half is about going inward and letting go of it. Many of you are in that transition period where the old ego-driven goals, the titles, the validation, the social markers of success no longer satisfy you. Music, but the new self-driven life hasn't manifested yet. This gap is the most painful part of the journey. Feels like a waste of years. You look back at your 20s or 30s and see lost time. You see years spent in jobs that didn't matter, or relationships that ended in silence. But look closer through the Jungian lens. Those years were not wasted. They were preparatory. Every disappointment was a lesson in what you are not. Every failed path was a necessary subtraction that narrowed your focus until only your true calling remained. In alchemy, the substance must stay in the fire for a specific duration. If you remove it too early, the transformation is incomplete. The waste you feel is actually the time required for your old identity to fully dissolve. You cannot rush the death of a version of yourself that took decades to build. The architecture of delay ensures that when you finally step into your new life, you are not carrying the baggage of the old one. The universe often stalls our progress when our character is not yet strong enough to handle the success we are asking for. This is a hard truth to accept, but it is a liberating one. If you were given your miracle 3 years ago, it might have crushed you. You didn't have the boundaries, the wisdom, or the heaviness of spirit required to sustain it. You might have been destroyed by the very thing you prayed for. The delay is actually an act of divine protection. It is the architect refusing to put the roof on a building until the foundation is cured. If you are being made to wait, it is because you are being reinforced. You are being prepared for a height you haven't yet imagined. Music. And a height like that requires a foundation of absolute integrity. Stop comparing your behind-the-scenes footage to everyone else's highlight reel. Their timeline is not yours, because their sole task is not yours. Some journeys are meant to be quick, shallow, and temporary. Your journey, because of its complexity and its alchemical nature, requires a different tempo. You music are a late bloomer, not because you are slow, but because you are rare. In nature, the rarest orchids take the longest to flower. The most complex diamonds take the most pressure and time to form. You are being sculpted by music, time itself. Consider the concept of kairos versus chronos. Chronos is chronological time, the ticking of the clock, the calendar, the deadlines of the ego. Kairos is the right moment, opportune time, the time of the soul. You may be failing in chronos, but you are succeeding in kairos. Your soul is waiting for the exact alignment of your internal growth and the external world's readiness for what you have to offer. Jung noted that we often experience a regression before a great leap, music forward. The energy withdraws from the world, making us feel tired, unmotivated, and stuck. But this energy is actually moving inward to ignite the self. When you are in the architecture of delay, your primary job is not to hustle harder, but to stay in the vessel. Do not blow out the fire by trying to force a result before it's time. Do not abandon the work because the results aren't visible yet. The most important parts of a building are the ones you never see. The steel beams, music, buried in the concrete, the pipes deep underground. Right now, you are working on the invisible parts of your life. You are developing the resilience, the shadow integration, and the spiritual authority that will make your eventual success authentic. Music. There is a unique type of authority that only comes from those who have survived the wilderness. Music. When you finally speak, when you finally create, when you finally lead, there will be a weight to your presence that the early bloomers can never music replicate. You will have earned your soul. You will be able to look at others who are lost in their own void and say with absolute certainty, I know the way out. That authority is worth every second of the delay. It is the difference between a flash in the pan and a guiding light. When you accept that your timing is being managed by a higher intelligence, your own self, the anxiety of running out of music time begins to dissolve. You realize that you cannot be late to your own destiny. You cannot miss what is meant for you. The missed opportunities were simply the universe removing distractions. The lost years were actually the tuition for your wisdom. Every moment of this waiting room phase is being used to weave the fabric of your character. You are not stuck. You are in a state of high-intensity preparation. The architecture of your life is being designed to withstand the tests of time. Music. And when the unveiling finally happens, you will realize that not a single second of the wait was in music vain. The miracle was never just the destination. The miracle was the person you had to become in order to arrive there. One of the music's most destructive myths of the modern world is the idea that to be successful, we must be perfect. We are taught to hide our scars, to edit out our failures, and to present a polished, unbreakable version of ourselves to music, the world. We treat our broken parts, our past mistakes, our traumas, and our perceived weaknesses as liabilities that must be minimized or buried. Music. But Carl Jung offered a radical and life-changing alternative. He taught that the goal of life is not perfection, but wholeness. In the Jungian view, your brokenness is not a defect. Music. It is the very material required for your transformation. This is what we call the integration of the broken. In alchemy, the final stage of the work is not the creation of something brand new from scratch. It is the gathering of all the disparate, burnt and dissolved elements and bringing them into a final unified state. If you leave out the blackness of the beginning or the bitterness of the middle, the gold will never form. Your life operates by the same law. Every part of your story that you have tried to forget. The moments where you felt weak, the times you were betrayed, the versions of yourself you are ashamed of, are the essential ingredients of your future strength. You cannot leave them behind and expect to be whole. You must go back and reclaim them. Jung famously said, "I'd rather be whole than good." To be music good is to live according to a narrow, socialized set of rules that requires you to cut off half of your soul. Music. To be whole is to accept the entirety of your human experience. When you are in the midst of a life-shaping transformation, the universe often brings your brokenness to the surface. It forces you to look at the parts of yourself you've spent years avoiding. This isn't a punishment. It's an invitation. The parts of you that have been broken are often the places where the light of the self can finally enter. As Leonard Cohen famously, music, wrote, "There is a crack in everything. That's how the light gets in." Think of the Japanese art of kinugi, where broken pottery is repaired with lacquer mixed with powdered gold. The philosophy behind this art is that the breakage and repair are part of the history of an object and should be disguised no more than they should be forgotten. In fact, the repaired piece is considered more beautiful and more valuable because of its scars. Your life is a work of kinugi. The moments where you were shattered were not the end of your story. They were the beginning of your golden music phase. Your scars are the structural beams of your new character. They provide you with a depth of empathy and a gravity of spirit, music, that unbroken people simply do not possess. The parts of you that you consider weak, music, are often the keepers of your greatest power. Jung called this the gold in the shadow. We often repress our greatest talents because they felt too much for our environment when we were young. We hide our sensitivity, our intensity, or our unconventional creativity because we were told they were wrong. By the time we reach adulthood, these parts of us feel broken or weird. But in the alchemy of the soul, these are the very elements that will make your eventual success unique. When you integrate your broken parts, you stop being a copy of someone else and start being a sovereign original. You move from being a fragment to being music, a force. This integration requires a shift from doing to being. Most of us try to fix ourselves by adding more things, more knowledge, more money, more status. But the alchemical shift is about unfixing. It's about letting go of the need to music, be perfect, and instead allowing yourself to be authentic. When you stop fighting your own history, you stop leaking energy. Music. You no longer have to spend half your life trying to hide your shadow. This reclaimed energy is what fuels the miracle you've been waiting for. You find that you have a new capacity for joy, a new level of creativity, and a presence that commands respect without you having to say a word. This is the secret of the wounded healer. Jung observed that only the person who has faced their own darkness and integrated their own brokenness can truly help others. If you have been through the fire, you have an authority that cannot be taught in books. Your failure in the eyes of the world was actually your initiation into a higher level of consciousness. You are being prepared to be a pillar for others who are still in the dark. Your struggle wasn't just for you. It was for the community you are destined to lead. You are learning the language of the soul so that you can one day translate it for those who music are still lost in the noise. So look at your broken pieces today with a new level of respect. Do not ask, "How can I get rid of this?" Ask, "What is this trying music to tell me?" Your depression may be a call for a more meaningful life. Your anxiety may be your soul's way of saying that you are living in a reality that is too small for you. Your past mistakes may be the very lessons that will save someone else's life tomorrow. When you bring these parts into the light, they lose their power to haunt you and instead become your allies. You are not a victim of your past. You are the alchemist of your future. The shift happens the moment you realize that the music disaster of your life was actually a divine intervention. The universe didn't break you to destroy you. It broke you to open you. It stripped away the lead of your false persona so that the gold of your true self could finally breathe. You are currently being reformed, realigned, and reanimated. The missing pieces of your life are being returned to you, but they are coming back in a different form as wisdom, as resilience, and as unshakable peace. As you move forward, music, carry your scars with pride. They are the evidence that you have survived the fire and that you have done the hard work of integration. You are no longer a fragile, perfect version of yourself. You are a resilient whole masterpiece. The architecture of your life is finally complete because it now includes the very parts you once tried to music throw away. You have integrated the broken, and in doing so, you have become invincible. The miracle hasn't just arrived, it has become who you are. There is a specific, unmistakable moment in the alchemical process where the nature of the struggle changes. Up until this point, you have likely been white-knuckling your life. You have been using your willpower, your logic, and your ego to try and force the universe to bend to your timeline. You have been treating your life like a problem to be solved rather than a mystery to be lived. But as the void deepens and the synchronicity accelerates, you reach a point of exhaustion. You realize that your ego, the small conscious part of you that thinks it knows what's best, is no longer equipped to handle the magnitude of the transformation you are undergoing. This is the moment of the great shift, the transition from being ego-led to being self-led. Music. In Jungian psychology, the ego is merely the center of our conscious field. But the self is the center of the entire psyche, including the vast ocean of the unconscious. The ego is like a small boat on that ocean. It can steer, it can row, and it can watch the stars. But it does not control the tides. For most of your life, you have believed you were the captain of the tides, music. You thought that if you just rowed harder, you could overcome the current. But the current you are fighting is not an external enemy. It is the movement of your own soul. The shift happens when you finally stop rowing and realize that the boat is being pulled toward a destination that your ego couldn't even imagine. This music shift feels like a letting go, but it is not a passive giving up. It is an active surrender to a higher intelligence. Jung observed that when music the ego finally admits its limitations, the self takes the wheel. This is when the struggle ends and the flow begins. Suddenly, the things you were trying to force through willpower begin to happen effortlessly through synchronicity. The doors that were slammed shut stay shut, and you no longer feel the need to bang music on them. New doors, which you didn't even notice before, begin to swing open. You stop asking, "How can I make this happen?" and start music asking, "What does the self want to happen through me?" When you make this shift, your relationship with time and results changes completely. The ego is obsessed with the miracle, the big payoff, the grand finale, the moment of external validation. The self, however, is interested in the process of individuation, the journey of becoming who you truly are. To the self, the delay wasn't a waste of time. It was a period of tempering. The chaos, music, wasn't a disaster. It was a reconfiguration. When you align your will with the will of the self, the anxiety that has been your constant companion for years begins to evaporate. Music. You realize that you don't have to create your destiny. You only have to allow it. This is the state of being that Jung called living symbolically. You move through the world with a quiet, unshakable confidence. Music. Not because you know exactly what is going to happen, but because you know that whatever happens is exactly what is needed for your growth. You become a co-creator with the universe. You provide the vessel, and the self provides the contents. You provide the action, and the self provides the timing. The pressure to be perfect or successful in the eyes of the world vanishes, replaced by a deep internal sense of rightness. You are finally in step with the music of your own life. The shift from ego to self is often accompanied by a strange sense of depersonalization. You start to see your life as a story that is being told through you rather than a story that is about you. Music. This doesn't make you less important. It makes you more powerful. You are no longer defending a fragile ego. You are expressing a sovereign soul. You become harder to offend, harder to discourage, and much harder to stop. You are no longer running on the limited fuel of hustle. You are running on the infinite fuel of the objective psyche. This is the moment the coincidences go into overdrive. When the ego and the self are in alignment, the external music world begins to reflect that internal harmony. Resources appear. The right people cross your path. The luck that eluded you for years suddenly seems to follow you everywhere. But you aren't fooled by it. You know it's music, not luck. It is the natural result of no longer being in your own way. You have stopped trying to be the architect and have become the temple. If you are at this stage right now, the feeling is one of weightless gravity. You feel the importance of your life more than ever, but you feel the burden of it less than ever. You have realized that the miracle you were waiting for was never a thing you had to achieve. It was a state of being you had to enter. You have shifted from the striving of the ego to the being of the self. And in that shift, the miracle is finally free to manifest. We have arrived at the final stage of the work, the culmination of the alchemical process that Carl Jung called the rabido, or the rening. This is the moment where the heat of the fire finally produces the gold, where the soul moves out of the darkness of the void and into the light of a new sovereign reality. You have sat in the silence. You have decoded the signs of synchronicity. You have endured the long structural delays of the architecture of your life, and you have integrated the pieces of yourself you once thought were broken beyond repair. You have shifted the seat of your identity from the fragile, frantic ego to the calm, unshakable self. And now, as you stand at the threshold of your new chapter, you will experience the final revelation. The realization that your life is not a series of accidents, but a masterpiece in progress. Jung taught that the soul does not move toward a simple destination or a static goal. Music. It moves toward a conjunction, a coming together of all the opposites within us. In this final music phase, the why of your suffering finally becomes clear. This is the moment of the retrospective miracle. You will look back at the tapestry of your life and realize that if even one thread of the chaos had been missing, music, the final picture, would not be complete. If that specific door hadn't closed with such painful finality, you would never have turned around to see the path that was actually yours. Music. If that person hadn't walked away, you would still be pouring your energy into a vessel that could never hold it. If that delay hadn't forced you to go inward, you would have built your future on a foundation of sand. Every disaster you endured was actually a coordinate. Every failure was a structural beam. Music. Every moment of nothingness was the space required for your soul to expand. In the Jungian view, the universe is not a cold, indifferent machine. It is a living psychic process that is actively collaborating with your growth. The miracle you've been waiting for was never a thing you were going to receive. It was a state of being you were going to achieve. You have been tempered by the fire, music refined by the silence, and expanded by the void. You have earned your soul. And because you have done the hard work of internal alchemy, you now possess something the world can neither give nor take away. A sense of unshakable internal authority. Music. You are no longer the person who started this journey. That version of you, the one who was terrified of the dark and desperate for external validation, has been calcinated, reduced to ash so that the gold beneath could music breathe. You are now standing in the ruins of your old life. But you aren't a victim of those ruins. You are the architect who has cleared the land. You are finally ready to inhabit the life that was designed for you before you even had a name. This is the stage of individuation where you no longer need to look outside yourself for the answers because the self is now providing a constant internal stream of guidance. Think about music, the weight of your presence now compared to when you began. There is a gravity to you. There is a heaviness of spirit that comes only from having survived the wilderness. You are no longer easily swayed by the opinions of others or the trends of the day. You have found your center, and that center is rooted in the deep, objective psyche. This is the long work that Jung spoke of. It is not for the faint of heart, and it is not for those who want quick fixes. It is for the seeker who understands that a life of meaning is worth the price of the fire. The final connection is the realization that you have never been alone. Even in your deepest moments of isolation, the self was there orchestrating the events of your life to ensure your transformation. The silence was not absence. It was the breath of the universe holding its peace while you did the necessary work, music. The great work is now becoming visible. You will find that you no longer have to hustle for opportunities. They will begin to seek you out. You no longer have to plead for connection. The right people will be drawn to your new frequency. You have become a magnet for your own music destiny. As you step forward into this new frequency, carry the wisdom of the void with you. Remember that whenever life feels like it is falling apart, it is actually just falling into place. Trust the process, music of the soul. Trust the architecture of the delay. Most of all, trust the self that has brought you through the fire and into the light. You have integrated the broken. You have transcended the ego. Music, and you have claimed your sovereignty. The miracle hasn't just arrived. It has become who you are. Music. You are the gold. You are the masterpiece. You are finally and completely home. Your journey of transformation doesn't end here. It simply moves into a higher frequency of being. If this exploration of the Jungian path and the alchemical stages of the soul has resonated with your own journey through the void, then you are exactly where you need to be. We are building a community of seekers here who refuse to live on the surface, who understand that the real great work happens in the depths of the psyche. To continue this work of soul discovery, and to stay connected with our daily deep dives into the wisdom of Carl Jung, please like this video and subscribe to Carl Jung Daily. By joining our community, you are choosing to live a life of depth, meaning, and sovereign truth. Your support allows us to keep bringing these timeless insights to those who are currently lost in the darkness, looking for a way out. Thank you for being part of this great work. Thank you for having the courage to face your shadow and the strength to wait for your light. Remember, the darkness was never meant to swallow you. It was meant to hide you while you were being remade. Keep going, keep seeking, and trust the alchemy. Music. We will see you in the next video.